But because he refused to leave without giving his soul, and when the whistle blew, whether they had won or lost no longer mattered, what mattered was that he had played with everything he was, and no one could take that away. Years later Daniel would look back, medals on the shelf, stories told of victories and defeats, but none of it would mean as much as those cold mornings on the empty field, because that was where he discovered the truth, that greatness is not a destination, it is a choice you make every single day, a choice to give more when you feel you have nothing left, a choice to listen not to doubt but to the voice inside that whispers keep going, the choice to carry the soul of the game in everything you do, whether on the field, in your work, or in your life. For the soul of the game is not about the game at all, it is about us, about who we choose to become when life tests us, when the world doubts us, when even we doubt ourselves. It is about the courage to say I am not finished yet, it is about discipline, about respect, about love for something greater than comfort, and that lesson stays long after the final whistle, long after the crowd goes home, long after the lights fade, because in the end we all play a game, and the question is not whether we win or lose, the question is whether we gave our soul to it. Daniel knew his answer, and now the question is yours. The morning was cold and silent as the first rays of sunlight painted the empty field with a golden hue, the grass still wet with dew, the kind of morning where most would stay in bed, where comfort whispers louder than ambition, but for Daniel, a boy who had been told all his life that he would never amount to much, it was the morning he had been waiting for, the morning that would define everything he was willing to fight for. He laced up his worn-out shoes, the soles thin, the leather cracked, the very kind of shoes no one believed could carry someone to greatness, yet to him they were not just shoes, they were symbols, proof that you did not need luxury to chase a dream, only the will to keep going when others quit. Daniel walked onto the field with his heart pounding, every step echoing the weight of the words he had carried for years, words like too small, too weak, not good enough, and every insult from classmates, every doubt from teachers, every sigh of disappointment from his own father burned inside him, not to crush him but to ignite him, to push him into a fire where excuses could not survive. He bent down, tied his shoes tight, and whispered to himself, "Today I show them, not with words, not with anger, but with the soul of the game itself." The game for him was not just about winning, it was about surviving, it was about showing the world that when life pushes you to your knees, you can stand taller than before. It was about proving that skill might come from talent but greatness only comes from discipline, the kind that hurts, the kind that demands you wake before dawn and keep running when your body screams no, the kind that says I don't care if you feel tired, if you feel broken, if you feel forgotten, you will keep going. Because that is the only way. Daniel began his drills, the sound of his feet slicing the wet grass, the ball rolling against his touch, each movement sharper than yesterday, each pass faster than last week. He had no audience, no cameras, no cheering crowd, just silence, just his own breath turning into steam in the cold air, and yet he felt the presence of something greater, the soul of the game itself whispering back to him, telling him this is where champions are made, not under the bright lights, not in the roar of applause, but in the quiet mornings when no one is watching. Hours passed and the sun rose higher, his body drenched in sweat, muscles trembling, but his spirit unbroken. He remembered the coach who told him he would never make the team, he remembered the laughter of kids who mocked his dream, he remembered the nights lying awake in bed wondering if they were right, and he let every memory fuel him, because in the end the game does not care about doubters. The game does not care about opinions, the game only cares about truth, and truth is revealed not in what you say but in what you do. Daniel trained until the field emptied of its shadows, until the birds flew overhead, until his vision blurred. And when he finally dropped to his knees, exhausted, he smiled, because he knew something no one else could see. He knew that greatness is not born in a moment of glory but in 1,000 unseen battles where you choose to rise instead of rest. That afternoon he walked into practice with his team, quiet as always, not the loudest, not the strongest, but the one who had bled when no one was looking. The coach eyed him with doubt, teammates dismissed him with smirks, but when the whistle blew, Daniel unleashed everything he had carried from the lonely mornings, every sprint sharper, every strike truer, every play filled with a hunger that shook even the most confident player. And slowly, very slowly, the field grew silent, because doubt cannot survive in the presence of undeniable work. His coach called him over, looked him in the eyes, and for the first time in years said, "Maybe you do belong here after all." But Daniel did not nod, he did not smile, he simply whispered to himself, "I always belonged, I just had to prove it." The season began and Daniel played with a fire that shocked even himself, not because he was the most skilled, not because he was the fastest, but because he played with something the others did not. He played with soul, the kind of soul that dives for every ball, that runs when lungs burn, that stands tall even when knocked down. He became the player who never quit, the one who inspired others to push harder, and soon his team began to rise. Victory after victory, not because of him alone but because of the spirit he carried that spread to all. The soul of the game had found its vessel in him, teaching others that talent can entertain but soul inspires. But success never comes without trial, and in the final game of the championship Daniel faced the darkest moment of his journey. His team was down, the clock running out, and every voice around him said it was over. His legs ached, his body bruised, his mind clouded with fear, yet deep inside he heard that same whisper, the one that had carried him from the lonely field to this very moment. It said, "The soul of the game is not about the scoreboard, it is about refusing to surrender when surrender feels easiest." So Daniel pushed, sprinted down the field one last time, his vision narrowing, his heart racing, and in that final second he gave everything, not for glory, not for applause,